And unfortunately, as we now see the rejection of the Christian basis for our Western governments, and we return to almost a new religion with the cultural Marxism and wokeness, we're seeing a return to that intolerance and that cancel culture that is largely resonant of the persecutions that we saw in a prior age. So it's a step backwards when we step away from the cherishing of religious freedom as a fundamental freedom and move towards a hostile and aggressive secularism that excludes Christianity and religion from the public square.
Can I put a suggestion to you that perhaps it's not the new secularism, because the new secularism in many ways is driven by a new religion? You're actually seeing the re-emergence of religious intolerance.
It indeed does have the character of religion, but this new religion is quite different from Christianity. It has no mercy, it has no forgiveness, it has no way back into reconciliation in the way that Christianity did. And I think many people in our society are beginning to see that this is not a step forward, this is not part of the great arc of progress, but that there's something that needs to be recovered in this area of religious freedom.
I think it also is lacking, what you see in religions is an allegiance to a higher power. There is no allegiance to a higher power in this current ideology. The higher power is oneself. It's a radical autonomy that places feelings and self-perception above anything else, which naturally crushes dissent. Because if you offend me, what my perception of myself is or my feelings, by its very nature, it can't tolerate that freedom of speech or that offense, and so it crushes it. And so I do think you could call it a quasi-religion, but again, it is so focused on a radical autonomy and it abandons any objective truth or higher power.
I think to what Kristen's saying, this is a unique moment in history. Think of the work of Philip Reith, and it was popularized by Carl Trueman, and he talks about these three worlds. The first world, where there was an appeal to fate. So there was still an appeal to an external authority. And then we had the world, Christianity and so forth, where it went from, as Trueman says, from fate to faith, but again, an appeal to a higher authority beyond ourselves. And then what's emerged in these recent times is no appeal to a higher authority, but as Kristen said, an appeal to oneself. And the point that Reith makes, and then Trueman, is that civilization can't sustain that. Ultimately, that will collapse on itself. And I think we're seeing the emergence of a lot of that across the Western world.
I agree with that, because surely, as I said a moment ago, we've got to hold the door open as people recognise how empty and hollow modern life has become and how inadequate we are to try and play God over our own lives. We're not up to the task. People must start looking again. And the objectors to religious freedom shouldn't be allowed to cut off those options as people start to seek again, because surely they will. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that's happening right now. New atheism has well and truly peaked. And you've got people like Justin Brearley pointing to the fact that there is a major reconsideration in a lot of circles of the matter of faith.
Well, we were told that we were being ushered into a new age of materialistic atheism, and that would do away with the fear and the superstition of a bygone religious age. But we're seeing entirely the opposite is true, that we've never been more anxious and more fearful, having deserted God. And so the culture is really hungry to see something that gives an answer to this fear and to this anxiety, and realizing that having thrown away this religion that underpinned this appeal to the transcendent, people are ready to re-engage with the transcendent.